Everyone, welcome. Thank you for coming out to our prep session for Conservation Lobby Day. Conservation Lobby Day is your chance to lobby with fellow advocates in your district for environmental action that matters the most to you. So just to introduce myself really quick, my name is Jaime Trejo-Angeles, and I work for the Virginia Conservation Network. Part of my role at VCN is to help with our flagship events, and I'm very excited to be talking with y'all and sharing a bit about what to expect for Lobby Day, which is next Wednesday. And yeah, and now I'll go ahead and pass it to Madelynn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madelynn. I use she, her pronouns, and I am with Climate Action Virginia, which is the grassroots organizing wing of the League of Conservation Voters. This is my third Conservation Lobby Day, so I'm super excited to be chatting with y'all and hopefully seeing you all next Wednesday. I'll pass it back to you.
Perfect. And yes, so and again, I understand in this meeting we'll be having, or prep call, we'll be having advocates who this will be their first time coming to a lobby day like this, or advocates who have 5 to 10 plus years. So I'm very excited and very open to having all of these experiences here today. Okay, so before we go on, I'd like to provide a rundown of what we'll be talking about today. So first of all, we'll start talking about the logistics and the day of schedule. So what to expect the day of lobby day, where you need to be at, kind of the whole run day of show for that day. Next, we'll follow up with tips and tricks with meeting with your legislator, recommendations how to have a successful constituent meeting with your legislator. Next, after that, we'll move on to roles and typical meeting structures. So once you're in the meeting, how can you expect to have a legislative meeting be structured? And Madeline will go a bit more into that as well. Next, we'll kind of look at bill language or general language that's used within the General Assembly and kind of giving a refresher on that language as well. Next, we'll go on to some helpful resources that VCN has prepared as well to help you become better prepared for Lobby Day next Wednesday. And then last but not least, we'll conclude with a breakout activity in which all attendees here today will be able to practice their lobbying pitches with each other as well. And then additionally, if you have any questions throughout our presentation, I encourage you to drop them in the chat. As we're speaking, and we'll definitely have a time during this presentation to answer questions in our Q&A portion. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and move us along to the logistics. So looking at the communications, I wanted to provide an update on what communications you'd be expecting of in the lead up to Lobby Day. So the first two items is you should expect to receive, sorry, just a sec. Okay, you should expect to receive two emails, so two district team introduction emails. So you'll receive an email introducing your district team to similar people who have your delegate, and you'll also receive a district team email for those who have the same legislator as you. And in these emails, it's basically like a whole email thread of you'll have the same people who'll be basically people who'll be going with you to your meetings. And this will be an opportunity for you to connect with the people who will join you in your meetings. And I've seen in past years where people use these district team emails to connect with each other and begin strategizing on what 2 to 3 key bills or priorities they want to talk about in these meetings. So just know you'll receive two emails, one to tell you your time for your delegate meeting time, and one to tell you about your time for your senator meeting time. And then additionally, corresponding with these emails, you'll also receive Google Calendar invites for your delegate meeting time and your senator meeting time as well. So again, two emails, two invitations. I also do want to note that these emails regarding the district team emails and the Google Calendar invites are only for those who indicated that they wanted to have VCN schedule their in-person or their constituent meetings. So if you during your registration wanted to opt out of your meetings, that means that you will not receive these emails. But if there is, for some reason, after today or after this prep session where you decide to change your mind about wanting to meet with your legislators or not, I also encourage you to reach out to me through my contact information, and I can also help you update your registration as well. And then last but not least, we will also be sending a final reminder and materials email. So this email will include policy videos, fact sheets, a reminder on the day's logistics at hand, and also just a few key details for you to expect. So, and also to kind of mention a good point, when should you expect these materials? Um, Definitely for the first three things, so the district team emails and the invites, expect those to come either Friday or Monday as we're finalizing a few attendee details. And this final reminder email, expect to receive it sometime early next week. Okay, and then we'll go and move to the next. Okay, so looking at the schedule, we do have a pretty packed day. So at 7:45, we're going to ask all registered attendees to come to where we'll be stationed at. So if you were here last year, this should be not a new location, but for those who are new to this event, we will be operating from St. Paul's Episcopal Church, which is located on 815 East Gray Street in Richmond, which is very close to the General Assembly building. I would say it's a 3 to 5 minute walk, so it's very nearby. Um, so we're going to ask you at 7:45, come to St. Paul's Episcopal Church, pick up your registration packet. So we'll have a packet with you, which will include tons of helpful materials that will be helpful for you throughout the day. Additionally, we'll have opportunity for coffee and breakfast as well. Um, so that's it'll be 7:45, and then at 8 a.m. we'll start our morning program. So this morning program will consist of legislators who will come to speak to attendees to the crowd and provide a few encouraging words before we're off to our legislator meetings. Um, and then from 8:45 to 11:30, that's when the main portion of the day will be for the legislator constituent meetings. So 8:45 to 11:30, we'll be having people moving back and forth from the church to the General Assembly building for their meetings. And then this is also a great time as well as you're maybe waiting for your meetings to also strategize with your district teams at the church. You can also strategize as you're arriving or during the morning program, but just know that there's this also additional time while you're waiting for legislative meetings to strategize with your district team. Um, yeah, and then to wrap up the day from 11:30 to 2, we're going to go ahead and have a lunch portion and debrief at the church as well. So lunch will be served, and also we'll be having a few programs as well to kind of wrap up the day. Right. So now providing the few of the logistics, I kind of want to move on to the tips and tricks with meeting with your legislators. So what are some recommendations that we can provide for you to the buildup of you meeting with your legislator and also during the meetings? Okay, so you might have heard me say district teams, but what is a district team? So a district team will consist of a small group of around 1 to 10 other advocates from your district. So let's just say, so everyone should have a senator and everyone should have a delegate. So that means you will have two district teams, one for your senator and one for your delegate. And depending on who your legislator is, that district team might be one person, two people, maybe like a very small team, or it could be a group of 10 people. So your district team can vary in size depending on who your legislator is. Um, Another recommendation we give for your district team is, and I mentioned this earlier as well, so you'll be connected with your district team or getting a sense of who will be with me at my meetings or in my meeting with my senator and who will be with me with my delegate. That's a great opportunity for you to start as a team to start thinking about what you want to prioritize on in your meetings. And we give the recommendation for you to look at and strategize on 2 to 3 key bills. Anything usually more than three can very much hinder the time and a lot of that you provide for the bill. So usually 2 to 3 is a good amount of time. We also will be providing you with materials in your little packets to share. So we usually provide one pagers on bills and positions and a little bit of the description on what the bill is. We also encourage you to share those with your legislators and their offices too. So another opportunity for you to drop off materials to them as well. And then this last bullet point too is, and I kind of talked about this too, is we ask that you agree beforehand as a group on what priorities to focus on. I can't stress enough how important it is to move in a coordinated effort. If, for example, your district team is moving in all sorts of directions, that just means that your legislative meeting might not be as effective as you want it to be. So definitely as a group agreeing on, again, beforehand and strategizing on like what 2 to 3 key bills you want to focus on, prioritize on. Yeah. And in your district teams, you'll have two opportunities to meet with your district team. So like I said, one, through that email chain that you'll receive telling you who your team is and what time. You'll be meeting with your either senator or your delegate, and then you'll also have the opportunity in person to meet as well at the church. So you'll have two opportunities to meet. So again, via email and via in person. Okay. So now looking at the constituent meetings, like what, so let's just say you're in the room or you're in the space with either a legislator, chief of staff, or a legislative aide. How can you best set yourself up for success? So the first thing I recommend is dress to impress. So in the General Assembly building, we're going to have tons of people dressed up with very formal biz. So formal wear. So I could see business formal, formal. So we definitely recommend you to dress to impress. So we would recommend professional attire and also comfortable shoes because if you might be walking back and forth from the building to the church and so forth, we want you to also make sure that you have comfortable wear as well. So professional attire and comfortable shoes is recommended. Um, so the next thing is we recommend you to plan to leave the church 30 minutes before your scheduled meeting time. That gives you ample amount of time to leave the church and walk to the building, which is a 5-minute walk. But I also want to emphasize, and this might not have popped up immediately in your mind, but you also do have to pass through security, and depending at certain times of the day, that could look up to a 1 to 2 minute wait versus the busier parts of the day, which could be a 10-minute wait, 15-minute wait, depending on what time of the day you're entering the building. So we definitely recommend district teams and your groups to leave and have ample time to walk to the building, pass through security, and also finding your like or finding the office of your legislator. Because that again, there are I would say around 14 to 15 floors, and it can be very sometimes confusing on where to find your legislator's office. So giving you ample time to coordinate all that. So next, when you attend your meeting, you might be able to speak with your legislator, their chief of staff, or legislative aide. And I kind of also want to highlight that that is totally okay. Let's just say you maybe had the expectation that you might be meeting with your legislator, but you might be meeting with one of their staff members. That's okay. At the end of the day, all this information that will be spoken about and communicated in your constituent meetings will all be relayed back to your legislator. So even though you might not be speaking with your legislator themselves, but maybe someone from their staff, all this information will be relayed back to the legislator themselves. So I want to echo that. And then last but not least, we recommend you to be flexible. Um, the meetings can be sometimes very short. So especially with the way we're coordinating legislator and constituent meetings. So as a reminder, VCN and some of our co-hosts are coordinating and scheduling your constituent meetings for you, so you don't have to do anything from your end. Typically the times we've been coordinating have been 15 minutes, so 15-minute meetings, but we've had and been reported some cases where some legislators for some reason have to head to something or something happens. And sometimes your time is cut short. So we've seen meetings sometimes as short as 5 minutes or even 10 minutes. So just being very flexible with that as well. But yeah, and that's another reason to also focus on is especially as you're meeting and as you're coordinating to keeping your points concise. Again, reiterating, making sure that you're focusing on the 2 to 3 key bills or 2 to 3 points that you want to talk about in your meetings. Because again, you might have the standard 15-minute meeting, or you might have a very short, truncated 5-minute meeting. Okay, so now I'd like to move forward to what's next. So you finish your meeting with your legislator or someone from their staff, but what's next? How can you follow up? So what we recommend you to do is at the time of the meeting, you are more than welcome to ask your legislator after talking about the pieces of legislation that you're interested in or you want to advocate for, what their position is on. And there are scenarios where the legislator might not want to share that information or might not or might be in the process of figuring it out. And that's totally okay. That just gives you another opportunity to follow up with them in a thank you email, a thank you note, or through some additional communication after your meeting to kind of follow up on their position. Another thing too is thank them for their time. Again, legislators will be meeting with various other constituents throughout the day. So just thank them for their time and energy that they're giving with the meeting as well. And then last but not least, let them know that you'll follow up with them with any requested information. Sometimes legislators, not sometimes, a lot of times legislators will want more additional information that could be technical, and all sorts of things. And like I mentioned, you'll have one pagers and materials in your packets. And I definitely recommend, a lot of people usually leave these sheets, these one pagers, to their offices. But also sometimes if you don't know the information, that's totally okay. You can always follow up with them and let them know that you'll follow up with that information that they're asking for. And it could be all sorts of things. Okay. And then I also touched on this a little bit earlier too, but I also recommend you to get a photo or to send a thank you note. Um, and if you end up taking a picture, you can take a picture when your group is in action. So if someone is speaking or sharing a good point, or I've also seen pictures of after the constituent meeting, so taking a picture as a group with your legislator. So I'd recommend you first to share the photo on social media, and you can tag the legislator in your posts. We also do have a nice little hashtag Conservation Lobby Day. And I would also recommend you to send the photo to them in a personalized thank you. So I mentioned this, and I was talking about this earlier. To follow up with a legislator, we definitely recommend you to have some form of communication afterwards. So it could be a thank you email or a physical thank you note, but either the one that you choose, definitely having a picture added there always helps. It makes the meeting more memorable to the legislator and their office. And it also, I would say, shows goodwill that you're a constituent that wants to build or maintain the relationship with the legislator, with their office. So, and yeah, just very much wanting to echo leaving some form of follow up to your legislative meeting. Okay. And I just went through a quick rundown, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Madelynn to talk about the rules and how these meeting structures for the constituent meetings can look like.
Yeah, thanks, Jaime. We can go to the next slide. So the first structure that I wanted to cover is works really well in a bigger group. So if you're going in with like 7 to 10 people, it's great to have a structure that people know to adhere to so that you can keep the meeting going. It also helps to, I would encourage you to look at the different roles and see which ones that you might be interested in for an activity that we will be doing later. So first, we're going to cover the leader. So the leader usually introduces the group and the bills that they're going to be focusing on. We encourage it to be kept to 1 to 3 minutes because we really want the meat of the meeting to be going to the storytellers. And so we really encourage you, oftentimes you want to list off the statistics and those types of things, and that information is super important. But another piece of that is very important to getting your message across is to share stories and to share why it's personal to you, why you think it's important, and why you think it's important to the community. That also matters a lot to constituents. So we really encourage folks to leave as much of the meeting as possible to people telling their stories and sharing why they think that this should be passed or opposed, whatever the case may be with the bill that you are coming in with. So also it's super important to have a note taker, someone who can basically jot down the important notes during the meeting so that you can revisit it later. You can also jot down the reactions of the legislators that you're talking to so you have a better stance on or what they might be thinking as the meeting is going on. And then the closer, very similar to the leader. I've actually seen it work pretty well where the leader and the closer are the same person, but just making sure that you have a concrete final ask that kind of sums up the meeting, and then also making sure that you are thanking the legislator for their time, as Jaime had said. And then also timekeeper / photographer, those are both important roles as well. The timekeeper especially, so making sure that you're taking note of how much time the legislator says, or their aide or whomever you're talking to says the amount of time that they have, and just making sure that everything's being hit on and those points are being kept concise. Even figuring out like a hand signal or something for the group so that people know, oh, we have only 2 minutes left. We better try to wrap it up. So, and then on the right of this slide has just a typical meeting structure and how much time you can, on average, dedicate to each of those different sections. We can go to the next slide. So like I said, the formal structure is great for larger groups when you have lots of people and you're trying to get things done in a short amount of time. An informal structure is another way of running a meeting, and it typically works well if you have a group of 1 to 2 people. And it allows for more time for everybody to kind of introduce themselves and then spend some time on what bills that they want to focus on specifically. So it's a little more personalized, which is great, but it can also take longer and is less concise compared to like a more formal structure. And again, like having a specific amount of time for each is also still important in an informal structure, and really works well depending on the team size. We can go to the next slide. And so this is just some like basic bill coding and vocab that you might need. So HB and SB stands for House Bill and Senate Bill, and it mainly just touches on where the bill originated. And then for House resolution or Senate resolution, the resolution typically means it's not necessarily a bill that they're focusing on, but there's something that they want to work on or modify. So you'll find it usually under the House resolution as opposed to a bill. And then HJR and SJR stands for House Joint Resolution or Senate Joint Resolution. It typically just means that they're partnering together to work on a specific issue or something that they want to modify that is in previous language. For amendment issues, you're typically going to find the little numeric symbol in the front of it, and they're usually a budget matter as opposed to like a bill specifically. So if you ever see that symbol, that's usually what it's referring to. And then we will be sharing these slides out to you after the fact, and it will have some of the frequently used terms. So if you're unsure of what a specific word means, it's usually on the frequently used terms, and you can use that as a reference. We can go to the next slide.
Perfect. Thank you, Madeline. I can take it from here. So to move us along, I want to share a few key resources for those who will be attending Lobby Day. So the first and main resource I'd like to share is our Conservation Lobby Day webpage. So this webpage is different from the registration page that y'all use to register for this event. So this webpage is linked here on the slide, and again, will be shared in materials afterwards. But this webpage will provide some of the same information you saw on the registration page. So the run of show, and also provide a little bit more. So provide educational videos. So we have a few videos providing some more context on the process within the General Assembly, and a few more tips. And then as well, so I also mentioned too that you'll receive um, one pagers on some of the key issue areas within our work. You'll also receive access to those, which will be posted there as well. You'll also, the recording of this video will also be posted on this main page as well, which you will be able to access as well. So very much, if you're able to remember one thing, this Conservation Lobby Day webpage is the one thing that is very important. So the next resource I'd like to highlight is the General Assembly Advocacy Guide, which basically all the content that Mal and I have been talking about today is located in this guide. And this guide is very helpful for, again, it could be anyone who this is their first lobby event or someone who is a seasoned expert. This guide provides materials on the general process of the General Assembly throughout the year, how to look up your legislators, committees, and also how to prepare for your constituent meetings. So this is also another helpful resource that has helped me prepare as well, and also a resource for y'all to use as well. The next resource is our bill tracker. So our bill tracker is updated very frequently. So VCN has a bill tracker with a list of key conservation related bills that our network has taken a position on and is updated very frequently. I also want to note that you can access talking points there. So if you are looking for, let's just say you're very passionate about a bill, but you are looking for talking points, maybe you see in the one pagers like, yeah, maybe I want something more specific to this bill specifically. You can look at our bill tracker and you can access the talking points for a bill there. So that's just another helpful resource that you can use to have within your meetings, especially if you're focusing on 2 to 3 key bills. So definitely also recommend looking at this bill tracker as well. And also on our bill tracker, it lists whether as a network we oppose, support, or what is our specific position on a bill. And then last but not least, and also Madeline touched on this as well, we do have a General Assembly frequently used terms webpage that we recommend for you to look at. We highlight a few of the more common terms, but we also recognize that there is a lot more terminology out there. So definitely take a look at this link. And again, these resources will be shared with everyone after the session, and we'll also be pushing these links out as well in our upcoming communications regarding Lobby Day. Okay. Um, I'd like to also highlight this resource, which is a fairly new resource. So it's the VPAP General Assembly app. So it's powered by the Virginia Public Access Project. And I want to highlight this app because it is a very useful app. So it is free. It's available on your apps. It's on App Store and I believe on through Androids as well. And what this app is very handy for is that it has a list of all the legislators. What you can do is you can access all your legislators, committees, who is in what leadership positions. What you can also do is you can search up your legislator. You can click on their name. Not only will it give you their contact information, a whole list of committees that they're on, what you can also do is on the top right, or not top right, top left, it'll give you their room number and a little map that points where their office is. And I can't stress how important that is because yes, a room number might be enough, but even just having a map to show you where specifically that office is very helpful. I recently went to the General Assembly building for the first time this week, and this app was a lifesaver in helping me find the offices of various legislators. So definitely recommend you to download this app. You don't have to, but this is just a great app that will help you figure out the location of your legislators' offices. Okay. So now we are on the Q&A portion. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will have the time to answer them right now. Right. So we do have one question. In my experience, it is best to talk with legislators about bills that go through committees that they sit on. Can you help us ID such bills for each legislator? So what I would recommend you to do is, and again, we do have our bill tracker. So again, there might be some bills that are being worked on by legislators in certain committees. What I recommend you to do is, if I believe correctly, our bill tracker can help you identify that, but that might be something that you might need to do a little bit more extra research on as well. Right.
Yeah, that would be one way to utilize the VPAP app
Mhm,
because then you can look at it, look at your legislator and see what committees that they're on. And so
mhm,
if you do find, like if you know who your legislator is and you want to see what bills that you might be interested in talking to them about, you can look at what committees they're on and then also use VCN's bill tracker and see which committees those bills are going to be going through. And then you can kind of match with your senator and you can bring it to them on lobby day.
mhm. Yeah, right. Like I can probably bring a question too. Let's just say I could see the question. Is there a way to confirm that you will try to schedule meetings? I did not see it on my registration. That's a great question. So VCN is, and our co-hosts are helping schedule your constituent meetings. So on your registration, you indicated who you will, or who your senator and who your delegate is. So that's part of the district team emails. So on either Friday or Monday, you'll receive an email with your confirmed meeting time with your senator and another email time with your confirmed time with your delegate. So it wasn't on your registration immediately, but you, like I said, you'll receive two emails, one for your senator and one for your delegate on either Friday or Monday, providing you with your confirmed meeting times for those meetings. All right. Are we allowed to talk to a legislator who is not ours? I would like to talk to my peers. That's a great question. So in the past, there have been constituents who, or just attendees who are interested in sitting in a different meeting, again, a meeting that might not be their delegate or their senator. What I would recommend you to do is if you notice a group, like, again, as part of Conservation Lobby Day, who is attending a meeting and you're interested in joining them, even though that's not your senator or delegate, I would definitely first check in with that group firsthand. Um, Again, that is that group. We're trying to focus on those who specifically that is their delegate or that is their senator. But if there is space, and sometimes there is space, um, you are also able to join. But first, I would definitely consult with that group beforehand and ask if it's okay for you to join as well. Another thing too is if you're joining as well, I would maybe recommend taking a not being like the very focal person in that room, definitely maybe more listening back and hearing and kind of letting others um, take the lead on that meeting. But yeah, but again, emphasizing, please definitely ask with that group beforehand. Another question I can think of that might be asked is, what if a legislator is maybe showing opposition to a position or a bill, or maybe you might receive some pushback. What we recommend you to do is definitely do not be combative in your meetings. Very much be friendly, be civil, be very much sticking to the talking points, sticking to the personal stories. Um, at the end of the day, you might have you might be meeting with legislators who have a different position than what you are pushing for. That is totally okay. At the end of the day, it is putting it in their minds that there are people who are pushing for this legislation. And again, just wanting to emphasize, please do not be combative. We want the tone and the form of these meetings to be friendly, to be professional, and again, to share stories and talking points. All right. How do we locate the group for a certain legislator? It's a great question. So you'll know who your group is for your certain legislator in the district team emails. So everyone will have a senator and a delegate. So you'll know your group. You'll know your group with your senator, and you'll know your group with your delegate in those district team emails. So you'll receive those two emails in total. And then, like I said, in those emails, you can start communicating with your district team on your priorities. What are you guys thinking of as a group? And that's just another way for you all to communicate before going out to lobby day.
Hey, Jaime, could you talk about the leaders too from the different organizations? Because I know that some members of the organizations or like organizers and stuff will be there to be with their volunteers. Could you talk on that too?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we'll be having our co-hosts be helping us throughout the day, and especially during the morning portion of the day, we might have, so let's just say the earliest meeting time is at 8:45. And I mentioned earlier, we recommend you getting there 30 minutes earlier. And so if we're asking groups to leave at 8:15, we could see that interfering with the lunch portion, like you might have to leave early. Rest assured, we'll have people on standby helping take groups to the General Assembly building throughout the day. So even if you've never been to the building, just know that we'll have people and co-hosts on standby to help direct people to the building. And they're also a great resource as well. If you have any questions on your meetings, they can help you direct you to the right people as well. Any other
Um,
questions?
yeah, I was curious if, oh, we do have one. How is parking near the church?
Mhm. Yeah,
And
that's a great question. So so I mentioned the Conservation Day main webpage. So that's like the one webpage that if you forget anything, take a look at that. So if you scroll down, there should be a section on travel. So if I remember correctly for the church will offer a $30 flat rate to park there. So you can park at the church. We also do have various other options listed on our page that provide different places that you can park as well. And also just parking too, if you're also taking public transit, or if you're also planning on staying in the night, we also do have options for lodging as well. So definitely recommend you to look at that. Again, Conservation Day main webpage, so not the registration page, our main event page to look at places to park. But yes, the church will have parking, again, the $30 flat rate.
if you are in a position to take public transportation, last I had checked, public transportation is still free to use, and you
Mhm.
can use that through GRTC. It's a great resource, and it can get you there for free, so you can save $30 that day.
Exactly. So the next question is, where is the bill tracker on the website? So, and again, this resource will be shared on in follow-up materials, but the bill tracker is located on the VCN main page. So that's different from the Conservation Day main page. So it's located on our webpage. You type in VCN bill tracker, it'll come up with a link. and that bill tracker is updated very frequently. So we definitely recommend you to take a look at that. And again, we'll be sharing the link to the bill tracker in follow-up materials after this prep session.
We also have a question from Peter Gates, who asked, will the legislative aides be candid about their representatives/senators' positions on bills? Jaime, I don't know if you wanted to add to this, but I would say it kind of depends. If one depends on the legislative aide and the senator, and then two, it also depends on the bill itself. There's sometimes different things that are happening at play. That's part of politics. So they might not be as willing to be forthright with their opinions on certain things. But I have found that in the past, if they're pretty dead set on their position on a bill, the legislative aide is usually quick to encourage their constituents that they hear them and that they're paying attention to this bill and that they're either in support or in opposition.
Yeah, I ditto. I echo everything that you said. And another thing too is maybe they might just say at this, like, again, to what you said, Madeline, thank you for your time. We hear you. That's just another opportunity for you to follow up with them in upcoming communication. So if you want to send like a thank you note, you can always ask that question one more time. Like, thank you for meeting with me. I want to follow up on the question I asked on your position. What is your position? Because again, as Madeline said, things are changing very quickly, very constantly. So again, if you don't get a definite response during your legislative meeting from whoever you're meeting with, definitely I encourage you to follow up in a thank you note, a thank you email, or any form of communications after your legislative meetings.
And that bill tracker can be utilized after lobby day as well. So if you want to check the status, they're updating that in real time so you can see how a bill is progressing.
Yes, ditto. Yes. Not only will we have the talking points, but we'll have updates on where they are throughout the process, if they're passed in committees, if they've been pushed back. Yeah, so definitely echo on looking at that bill tracker frequently.
And Beth, to your statement, the legislator needed the bill number. The fact sheets that BCN will have both the name of the bill as well as the bill number right at the top. So if that's the bill that you're going in with, you'll have that information right there. But it's definitely beneficial to have both. And it's great for the introducer or the leader and the closer to have that information as well. So it's the first thing that they hear when they come in and the last thing that they hear when you guys go out. So.
Exactly. Right. Any other questions before we move on to our breakout activity? Okay, and that's totally okay. And then if we have time remaining, we'll also provide another opportunity for questions if anything comes up. Right. And then Matt, if you want to explain this activity really quick.
Yeah, so we're going to do a quick activity to kind of bring this all together. As Jaime had said, we're going to give you guys the opportunity to kind of practice what that meeting might look like. These are not your individual groups that you're necessarily going to be meeting with on lobby day, but it's still great to practice deliberating roles and then figuring out what kind of roles that you would like. If you guys need to see the roles again, we can put that back up on the screen for you. So we're going to do some breakout rooms of about 5 to 6 people. And we're going to give you guys about 5 minutes to plan on a specific bill that you want to pull up. So we can also probably drop the bill tracker in the chat and you can just pick one and make some talking points and then practice how that meeting is going to go, what you want to focus on, what roles you want to take on, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll give you guys 10 minutes to kind of play that out. Make sure you're taking note of what worked and what didn't. And then we're going to bring y'all back into the main room and we're going to have a tiny discussion about what you think worked, what are some things that you think you'll want to work on or have sorted before you go into lobby day, those types of things. And yeah, we'll send you guys on your way.
Of course. In the meantime, while I'm saying these breakout rooms, Madeline, would you be able to drop the bill tracker in the chat?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
Sorry, all my internet is lagging.
You're good.
There we go.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put you guys into breakout rooms. I definitely encourage you look at one bill that you all want to talk as a group, and as Madeline said, take some time to practice and plan and role play. Yeah, I'll go ahead and start the groups now. Right, so we're having everyone trickle back from the activity. So just to kind of wrap us up, anyone want to share any thoughts or highlights from this activity, something that they learned, something that they maybe realized like as you're doing this activity? Any thoughts?
Well, I just realized that I really needed to have a lot more background information to and present it cogently.
Yeah, and then
Also,
go ahead.
I think it's important, whichever, if we're representing either from ourselves or representing an organization, we should have info, the issues of the specific organization written down to hand to the legislator,
Mhm.
because it's going to be extremely difficult to verbally get everything into 15 minutes, much less 5 or 10. So have a summary of what your organization is requesting to hand to the aide or to the legislator themselves.
That's a great point, and that's another reason, and I want to highlight the importance of the one pagers that we'll be providing with you in your little packets. So have the little VCN logo, and it'll give you the different bills that we ask advocates to prioritize throughout water, climate, energy, land and wildlife conservation, and yeah. So that's another great point. Someone also put in the chat, knowing the bills, and yes. And again, like I mentioned, you had the bill tracker, and again, you had these one pagers that will be handing or that will be provided to you in your little packets of the day of, and also shared with you. So yeah.
What about
Go ahead.
what about challenging them on whether they've done their homework, such as have they read the JLARC study?
That's a great question. Some might have not. That's just another space for you to provide. And that might be another thing too, is a legislator might want more additional information. That's another great way to point them to people that you want them to talk to regarding, like it could be your example of the JLR study or other things as well. Right. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the last section. So again, everyone, thank you for coming out to our prep session. If you have any other questions, and please feel free to reach out to me or to Madeline, and our emails are displayed here. And you'll also receive a follow-up email from me as well. So just know that you'll have some communication after this prep session from me. So yeah, and then again, this session has been recorded, so you'll receive a recording of it as well. We'll post it up on our YouTube channel, and we'll share it out to everyone as well. So if you have friends, colleagues, or other peers that you know that are coming to lobby day, but maybe didn't come to this prep session itself, it's another great resource to share with them as well. And then one final point too, I mentioned earlier that this might be the first lobby day for some people, and this might be your fifth or sixth one. I also just want to emphasize and highlight and just very much put on focus that you coming out is more than is a lot of work, and we appreciate that you're coming out to an event like this. And even though you might not be the biggest expert on bills, or you might not be a policy expert, or you might need to do a little bit more clarification or just figuring out what to talk about. At the end of the day, you being able to share your stories and share why it matters to you as a constituent, to your legislators, is just as important and can be sometimes just as impactful. So yeah, just want to thank everyone for coming out to this. And then Madeline, if you have any other final thoughts.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, like I was talking to Jaime before we all jumped back into the room, and I was saying the first time that I ever did it, I had sort of this imposter syndrome of, oh, I don't know enough information. I'm not a policy expert. Like, how am I supposed to talk about these things? And so I did want to share, even if you've done this several times, I think it's just a great piece of advice that I received. and it's focused on what you're doing, not how you're doing. And so really connecting to why you are here, why you care about these issues, and really being able to talk about why it affects you, and why it has moved you to coming today. Those have such a huge impact in those rooms, and often make those legislators can really take those stories into the decision room. And so it can be very influential. So just trying to damper down the personal like critique in your head, on how you're doing. Just focus on like, okay, but this is why I'm here today, and this is why I'm using my voice in this space to make change. Because you're not just advocating for yourself, you're advocating for your community at the same time. So just really making that the focus of what you do and what you bring into that room will go a long way.